China has shut down Little Kyoto. Japan scares the Chinese Communist Party, but it is admired by the people of China. So, why did some Chinese citizens suddenly take to social media to outrage against the Japanese project in a Chinese city? We think that it was the handiwork of the CCP. There is no other route through which Xi Jinping could have painted the message that the Chinese people do not like Japan. One must have an eye to see through layers of Chinese propaganda. Thankfully, we do, and we're here to bust this below mediocre communist propaganda doled out by the CCP. Hi and welcome. This is TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host Sanbir Ranhotra, and in this video, I will tell you how a terrified CCP has shut down Little Kyoto in China as Chinese people's love for Japan makes Jinping nervous. Let's begin. China is spooked by Japan. The Chinese people, however, love Japan. According to a survey conducted between September and October of last year, 45.2% of Chinese people had a favorable opinion of Japan. Since comparison data became available in 2005, this was the second highest proportion. The most common reason cited for the positive attitude of Chinese people towards Japan was that the Japanese are polite and they put emphasis on manners with high cultural standards. For a supremacist Chinese Communist Party, these numbers were hardly motivating. A significant share of the Chinese populace viewing Japan favorably simply runs contrary to the CCP's plans of stoking conflict in the East China Sea. So, the Chinese Communist Party has now manufactured a supposed anti-Japan sentiment in China. This is manufactured, which means the narrative of Japan hating does not have many takers among the Chinese populace. However, to fulfill its demented agenda, the CCP needed an opening, and they have produced one now. Late in August, in the northeastern Chinese city of Dalian in Liaoning province, a Japan-themed shopping, cultural, and residential complex that opened in mid-August was ordered to suspend operations. The CCP seems to have employed its bots and extremist supporters for waging an anti-Japan campaign on Chinese social media. Especially on Weibo, web users were outraged that traditional Japanese goods were being promoted over Chinese products. The promotion of Japanese-made goods and companies in such an area appeared to be a sore point for many, who described the commercial complex as an invasion of China by Japanese culture. According to the real estate developers behind the complex, Dalian Shuyan Group, the municipal government instructed them to suspend operations on the night of August 30th, citing concerns about the criticism expressed on the internet, as well as fears for crowds gathering in the area during the pandemic. A reopening date for Little Kyoto has not been announced, leading to speculation that the project might never kick off in its full glory. According to Nikkei Asia, Tang Little Kyoto is part of a sprawling 600,000 square meter complex, which was built at a cost of 6 billion yuan or 925 million US dollars and is scheduled to be complete in 2024. Xi Jinping is an insecure little despot. And who is a despot? A despot is a ruler who holds absolute power, typically one who exercises it in a cruel and oppressive way. A despot is usually seen as a dictator, and in China, what the people suffer from is a communist despot who is always insecure. The insecurity of CCP General Secretary Xi Jinping stems from the realization that his regime is heavily disliked and that he is himself seen as an oppressive leader who wants to remain in power for as long as he is alive. Jinping hates the fact that the Chinese people admire Japan and its culture. Therefore, in order to counter the influence of Japanese culture in China, Jinping seems to have manufactured online outrage against the Little Kyoto project, giving CCP authorities sufficient ground to close down the project as a whole. Japanese electronics giant Toshiba recently announced its departure from China after 30 years of its continued presence in the country. The company will cease production at its Dalian facility by the end of September, and the liquidation process will begin next month. Moreover, another Japanese company named Oki Electric Industry Company is also preparing for executing its China exit plans to shift its production to Thailand as part of efforts to focus on competitive products amid a growing paperless trend. The Toshiba facility, which is set to be shut down, is located in the same city as that of Little Kyoto. With news of two major Japanese companies pulling out of China doing the rounds for quite some time now, Xi Jinping, with the closure of the Tang Little Kyoto project, must have intended to send a warning to Japan and its companies. However, the warning does not seem to have had its desired effect. It is not really a trait of the Chinese people to hate Japanese culture. That an outburst of anger against Japan was recently seen on China's social media just before two major Japanese companies announced their exit from the mainland is quite telling of how the CCP manufactured the entire anti Tokyo campaign.